Mine has been a life of much shame. I can't even guess myself what it must be to live the life of a human being. This is how Osamu Dazai introduced the protagonist, Obayozo, in his book No Longer Human. Osamu Dazai was born on June 19, 1909 in Japan. He was one of the most celebrated and controversial authors of the 20th century. Dazai came from a wealthy and a prominent family. His father was a member of Japanese parliament, but despite such privileged upbringing, he often felt alienated from his family and society. Dazai began studying French literature at the University of Tokyo in 1929. However, he never completed his degree due to mental problems and struggles with alcoholism and drug abuse. Dazai's early literary works were heavily influenced by the Western literature, particularly nihilistic themes found in writings of authors like Charles Baudelaire and Edgar Allan Poe. Later in his life, Osamu Dazai created a novel named No Longer Human, which is considered as a masterpiece and Dazai's legacy, where he challenged the depths of existential despair and the search for authenticity. The main character of this book, Obayozo, resembles Osamu Dazai himself. It could even be categorized under the semi-autobiographical genre, even though the characters in the book are all fictional. Yozo, throughout the book, feels a deep disconnect from society. He does not understand the behavior of those around him, which is why he perceives himself as a fundamentally different organism. In one of the instances, Yozo recounts an incident where he ends up spending time in a bar with Tsuneko and some other women. During this encounter, Yozo, though appearing outwardly normal and even charming, internally feels a complete detachment and unease. He shares a significant reflection after Tsuneko jokingly suggests that they should die together. When she said this, all of us laughed together. I laughed too, the sort of laugh I'd never thought I'd laugh again. But in the midst of that laughter, I was suddenly struck by a horrifying thought, that this woman and the rest of them, they were truly human beings. It made me shudder to realize that, although I was supposed to be a human being too, I had never once had a feeling of a human being. This theme of alienation is a central pillar in existential philosophy, particularly in the works of Sartre and Albert Camus. According to Jean-Paul Sartre, human beings live in anguish because of the freedom they were given. In Sartre's existentialist philosophy, alienation occurs when individuals deny their own inherent freedom and instead allow their character to be defined by external validation or societal norms. Throughout the novel, Yozo frequently adopts various facades and conforms to societal expectations in order to avoid confronting his own freedom and the existential responsibilities it entails. This is a vivid illustration of Sartre's concept of bad faith, where Yozo chooses to deceive himself about his own nature and capabilities, rather than face the anxiety of freedom and the necessity of defining his identity through his actions. By conforming to societal expectations or predefined roles, Sartre argues that individuals lose their authenticity and live in a state of alienation, not only from their true selves, but from others as well, who they cease to engage with as free and independent beings. Thus, alienation for Sartre is not just a feeling of being separated from others or one's environment, but a deeper estrangement from one's own potential for self-definition and genuine existence. In No Longer Human, Yozo's inability to authentically engage with others or confront his own identity mirrors Kierkegaard's concept of despair, which is the result of not being true to one's own self. Kierkegaard argued that despair is an illness of the spirit, a misrelation within the self that occurs when the individual fails to align with their true identity or potential. Yozo's continuous use of facades to interact with society and his retreat into isolation can be seen as the manifestation of that despair, where he fails to reconcile who he is internally with who he presents externally. He is overwhelmed by the spectacle of existence, always observing life, rather than living it authentically. Dazai's life was marked by various personal crises, including tumultuous relationships, multiple suicide attempts, and continued struggles with substance abuse. His personal life and professional life were deeply intertwined, with his literary achievements reflecting his inner turmoil and existential angst. His life came to a tragic end when he and his lover, Tomi Yamazaki, drowned in the Tamagawa Canal in Tokyo, in what was ruled as a suicide on June 13, 1948. Dazai's death has cemented his legacy as a tragic figure in Japanese literature, and his works continue to be celebrated for their emotional depths and insight in the human condition.